by the leader of majority. 2, the submission of the political parties tribunal. And thirdly, the National Treasury that made a submission on the political parties fund. Of the 80 political parties, big and small, in this country, none of them has been invited to submit. Of the many other organizations that play a key role in the management of political parties and democracy, like the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, the many election monitoring organizations, the IEBC, women organizations, all those are missing. And that is why we are seeing there's a hurry. So to cut the long story short, Standing Order 131 is a procedure, does not obligate a member to drop his amendment. It's silent, it begs, it asks for consensus for the member to engage, to serve on time on the floor, to see whether members with their amendments are more similar, whether they can agree on one of their own to carry, whether a member can be convinced by the committee that did the public participation. So in the event that we realized that the meeting that we were to attend this morning in line with Standing Order 131, the meeting was bigger. It was outside the framework of that standing order. We feel the only route remaining for us is to convince the House tomorrow morning and afternoon, argue our case, because we are under obligation to defend the multi-party democracy that the 2010 Constitution has given us. And finally, the biggest problem we have with this bill is that the Registrar of Political Parties, that office, is to regulate political parties. And in this bill, the Registrar is being given excessive, I can call it imperial powers, to conduct, for example, the nomination of political parties. That function squarely lies with IEBC. The Registrar cannot take the function of IEBC. As a party, or parties have submitted their nomination rules and procedures to IEBC. Just a week ago, they gave all parties who complied with, they were given certificates. So in this bill, you see the Registrar has powers to conduct and manage party nominations. The Registrar has given in this bill powers to register political powers, the parties. The Registrar in this bill is being given powers to assume and not defined in the interest of public interest. She can remove a slogan, she can remove a symbol, she can remove an economic model, for example, like the bottom up. So the Registrar in the context that office is to be an independent but a department of IEBC. But now the Registrar is being made to be bigger than the political parties that she's supposed to regulate. So I really want to ask Kenyans that we're not speaking for our party, and members of parliament should listen to me as a ranking member, as a former majority leader. And I think each and every member who is here and those who are not here, they have got their justification, they have got their arguments, and we will ask the Speaker that unlike other committee of the whole House, this time each and every member, and I want to ask the entire House, let us have decorum, let us listen to each other, let us convince each other, let us think and make the law outside political partisan positions.
A question just before you introduce the Speaker. Two issues. On public participation, the Justice and Legal Affairs and I think Parliament advertised for persons that are interested to make submissions to do so. So who is at fault if political parties did not do so? Is JLAC obligated to request political parties, or it's up to them to submit to what the request is? Secondly, you speak about Standing Order number 131. and the chair of the JLAC made a ruling and said that they are not going to participate. They're just there to listen, just like the people who are in the public are listening. Why did you have a problem with that?
Number one, let me start with the last one. The Standing Order 131, and I'm sure you have a copy of the letter, is inviting a meeting specifically for members who have amendments and the committee that is dealing with that bill, in this case, JLAC. So the discussion was between members of the committee and members who have got, yeah. So I think even it's out of order, and we'll ask for the speaker on that matter, for a third party to come and convince me as a member for Garissa Township, or to be in a discussion where, because that stakeholder had an opportunity. The procedure of legislation has different stages. You first publish the bill, first reading, then calling for public participation is put on the newspapers, then the committee does public participation. So they were there. Now, the bill is at the tail end, at the committee of the whole House. So it is between members of amendment for tidiness, for neatness. So even the presence of those people, in our opinion, was out of place, was out of order. The chairman can rule the way he wants. So as we stick to the reading of Standing Order 131.
Two maybe before Duela gets to the other one. Why we are opposed to the presence of the stakeholders is because, as the leader of majority has clearly stated, it was an attempt to sanitize the lack of public participation. And indeed, it is true, Parliament did advertise. Members of the public did send memoranda. The memoranda were never considered by the committee. It is on record. If you go to the records of the Hansard proceedings of last week's sitting, the Honourable Member for Parliament for Dagoretti South, Honourable KJ, raised the matter. As a member of the committee, the Honourable Murugara, as a member of the committee, raised the matter that there was actually no public participation memoranda from members of the public and political parties that were considered by the committee. And I think the issue is about the rush. And you've heard even other political players, leaders of other political parties. I've heard the Honourable Martha Karua, the Honourable Wetangula, and Honourable Musalia speak about the rush to pass this law. I think it is that rush that has made them conduct a law illegally and constitutionally without public participation, because you cannot say you have conducted public participation and in your own report table before the House, only the three stakeholders who are basically government people, the Registrar of Political Parties, the chairman of the tribunal, and the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary have appeared before the committee. Memoranda that were sent by members of the public, and we have copies of memoranda that were sent. The Honorable KJ table a copy of one such memoranda that was submitted on the last day. You remember the third reading could not proceed on the first day of the special sitting on account of the public participation exercise not having been completed, because it was to be completed that day at 5 p.m. Memoranda that came that day, the committee sat for exactly 23 minutes after 5 p.m. What memoranda were considered? None. Therefore, the issues are there, and the attempt today was to try and sanitize that process and make it look to the country like there was actually public participation that is being done. But unfortunately, even that public participation, they have invited the same stakeholders, the owners of, purported owners of the bill.
And also, just a moment, do you have the specific list of memoranda that came?
Okay, yes, I can get you one. I can just call KJ and get you that. I'll send that to you.
Just to add on what my friend has said, most of our amendments seek to reduce the powers or the involvement of regional political parties in party primaries. So what was her role to appear before the committee? Was she to defend her involvement at that particular level? So that is what we felt is completely procedural, irregular, and fishy.
Even if she's to say nothing?
Absolutely, because she has not been given any mandate by Kenyans specifically on what we were to do today, considering that the bill was at third reading.
Parliament doesn't legislate for individuals or for particular political parties. Legislate for the country.
Then Owen will do Swahili.
Yeah, thank you.
As you make your statement, maybe you can also take us through what your proposed amendment was to be and now what its fate is.
The amendments still stay, and it's not one. I have several amendments. Today's appearance before the committee, as my colleagues have stated, was basically to try and see whether we can harmonize between ourselves and the committee, because the chairman is expected to move the bill. And as he moves the bill, if there are areas that you can agree, then you can even agree before. Some of the amendments can be adopted in the normal circumstances. When people use reason, can even be adopted by the committee because they could be helpful. However, this morning, so therefore the members here, all of the members here in this press conference have different amendments, and somehow some of those amendments could even be the same, but it's only after you have moved your amendment that you can possibly have another colleague who had a similar amendment would possibly drop your amendment. I had an amendment on the definition of political party, because and it's a very critical amendment.
Don't go to the details.
Those details are there within the order paper. But in short, we are saying some of the amendments speak to the unconstitutionality of this bill, because you cannot purport to bring new definitions into this bill through a legislative amendment when the Constitution itself gives the definition, and that is in Article 260 and Articles 91. And therefore, we are not interested in sideshows. We are interested, as Kimani has said, in coming up with a law that speaks to posterity, that will make good if there are some gaps, deal with the gaps before we go to the elections. But you see, when you are dealing with people like UNET, people like Kajwang, and a chair who cannot make decisions looking at the simple standing order, because the letter from the speaker, the direction by the speaker, although he did direct, the speaker directed that stakeholders can be consulted. And I really don't know, that ruling still has a challenge, because at this stage where we are going, committee stage of the whole house, it's not time for public participation. Actually, public participation period is spelled out within the law, and it closed before the public was given opportunity. You see, when the dates finish of submitting the memorandum, soon after, the committee is supposed to call the people who have submitted the memorandum. On the same day, the report was already on the floor of the House. So that's why we are saying there is a problem. Today, had we agreed to participate in that, kangaroo something there, it means we would have sanitized the process of public participation, where we know, as members, we are supposed to engage the committee directly on the proposed memorandum. So can we just agree that it's a matter of procedure, and procedure for the House, tradition, procedure is critical to whatever law you come up with.
I don't know who responds to this moment. I don't know who responds to this, because last week when there was a bit of voting, it was 113 versus 68, if I'm not mistaken. So what strategy will you use?
Don't worry, you'll see.
Just a moment, let me ask the question.
Yeah.
So what strategy will you use to make sure that this time around you have sufficient numbers?
Tomorrow morning, I think 10 o'clock when you come to the House, you'll see the strategy of each group. We don't need to discuss. We don't need to discuss it here. Yes. So let's finish this way.
And by the way, the only reason why we call these things during special sittings is to ensure that they don't have numbers, and they use, the means they use. They bribe members of parliament to appear on their side.
How much?
100,000.
Mimi nataka kusema hivi kwamba tuliitwa hapa kwa barua ya ama mwaliko wa clerk wa assembly kwamba wale ambao wabunge ambao wako na marekebisho wa huu mswada wakuja wakutana na kamati ile ya JLAC ili tuweke uhiano katika yale mawazo yetu ambayo yako na ile mapendekezo yetu mapya, ili ile sheria ikija katika bunge iwe watu hawatatizani pale. Wale ambao wako na marekebisho ambayo yako sawa ama yanafanana yang'olewe, yawekwe mengine, ili tukienda katika bunge kuwe hakuna utata. Lakini vile tumeona tulipoingia katika kile chemba ni kwamba ile kamati ilikuwa imeshajipanga kwamba mwanzo sio kwa ibara ile ya 131 ya standing orders zetu za bunge kwamba wanataka kuleta article 118 ya katiba katika ule mjadala tungekuwa nao pale.
na sisi kama wabunge tunaheshimu taratibu za bunge, na taratibu za bunge zinasema kwamba sisi tumeitwa kwa ibara ya 131 kwamba tukae na kamati tuangalie yale mapendekezo yetu yote, tujaribu kuyawiana ili tukija ndani ya bunge tusikuwe na shida. Lakini sisi tumeona kwamba wale walikuwa na njama fiche ya kwamba mwanzo wako na shida na mambo ya public participation. Sasa wanataka kuleta public participation katika huu mjadala wa leo. Ndio sisi tumeona kwamba kusimama na Wakenya ambao umetupatia katiba hii ambayo lazima tuheshimu. Tunaheshimu katiba na tunasema sheria ifuatwe. Sheria kufuatwa ni kwamba sisi kama ambao tuko na mapendekezo tukae tuiangalie tumalize, na kama kamati inaona kweli inataka kuona wale stakeholders pia iendelee kuwaona wale stakeholders kama sisi tumemaliza. Lakini mwenyekiti yeye alikataa mapendekezo yetu, na mapendekezo yetu hayakuwa nje ya sheria, yalikuwa ndani ya sheria. Ndio naona sisi tunakataa yale mambo ambayo wanajaribu kufanya kwamba wanataka kuleta kwa lazima mabadiliko ya sheria katika hii nchi. Pili, tuongezea kwamba hii nchi na vile inaenda na yale mipango ambayo tunaona kamati ya JLAC inataka kutumiwa kuharibu sheria na uchaguzi unaokuja. Kila mtu awe na nia ya kuhakikisha kwamba uchaguzi unaokuja ni wa haki, ni wa halali, na kila mtu afurahie uchaguzi, sio kutengeneza sheria sasa ili kusaidia watu wengine katika uchaguzi unaokuja. Huo unafikiria una athari kubwa kwa taifa la Kenya. Kwa hiyo sisi tunataka kusema kwamba tutasimama na Wakenya wapenda sheria kama sisi, kwamba sheria ya taifa ifuate katika haya mabadiliko ambayo yanakuja ya kitaifa. Thank you.
Thank you.